There is a robin in your yard right now that is about to make a decision that has nothing to do with being dirty. It is going to find water, step into it, and spend the next several minutes doing something that looks, from your window, like a bird enjoying a splash on a warm morning. But what is actually happening in those few minutes is one of the most physiologically critical behaviors in that bird's entire day. Miss it too many days in a row, and the robin cannot fly properly, cannot stay warm at night, cannot escape a predator at full speed. A bird that cannot bathe regularly is a bird in serious trouble, and the reason has nothing to do with cleanliness. Most people who put out a bird bath think they are giving birds a nice extra, a luxury, something pleasant but not essential. The science tells a completely different story. Bathing, for a bird, is maintenance. Physiological, structural, survival critical maintenance. The kind that has to happen regularly, or the bird's ability to do almost everything else starts to degrade. Understanding why changes not just how you think about your bird bath, it changes how you understand every bird you have ever watched fly. Welcome to Bird Minds. The last section of today's video explains a pattern in your yard you have almost certainly noticed, but probably never understood. Stay for that. To understand why bathing matters, you first have to understand what a feather actually is. Think of a feather like a zipper. Each side of a zipper has teeth that lock into the teeth on the other side. When aligned, the zipper holds. When they come apart, the whole thing fails. A feather works on exactly the same principle. Microscopic hooks on each branch interlock with hooks on adjacent branches. When properly aligned, the feather traps a layer of air against the bird's skin for insulation. It creates the smooth surface that allows air to flow cleanly over the wing during flight. It repels water at the outer layer while keeping the insulating layer underneath dry. When those hooks come apart through normal daily use, and they do constantly, just from flying and moving through vegetation, the feather degrades, the insulating layer leaks, the aerodynamic surface becomes irregular, water penetrates more easily instead of beading off. Researchers studying flight performance in wild birds found measurable differences in wing efficiency between birds with well-maintained feathers and those whose condition had degraded, significant enough to affect escape speed from predators. Feather condition is directly connected to survival, not comfort, survival. This is where bathing comes in. When a bird steps into water and begins wing flapping and feather ruffling, it is deliberately wetting its feathers to a precise degree. Enough moisture to make the microstructure temporarily flexible, enough for the zipper teeth to be realigned during preening afterward. Not so much that it loses all insulating function while still in the water. Immediately after bathing, the bird moves to a safe exposed perch and works systematically through every feather with its bill, realigning the microscopic hooks, restoring the structure that daily use degraded. At the same time, it applies oil from the uropygial gland just above the base of the tail, spreading a water-resistant coating across the outer feather surface. The entire sequence, bathing, then preening, then oiling, is not hygiene, it is structural maintenance. The same way a car cannot run indefinitely without an oil change, a bird cannot function without this sequence. Now here is the part that changes how you look at your specific bird bath. Birds do not bathe in just any water. They are particular in ways most people never anticipate. Depth is the first variable. Most commercially available bird baths are too deep for small songbirds, a chickadee, a warbler, a goldfinch. These birds need water no deeper than 1 to 2 inches where they stand, deep enough to wet the feathers through vigorous splashing, shallow enough that the bird never loses its footing. A bath that is uniformly 3 or 4 inches deep will be avoided by small birds entirely, not because they do not want to bathe, but because standing in it does not work for their body size. Surface texture is a variable almost nobody considers. A smooth, glazed ceramic surface gives a bird's feet nothing to grip. Birds approaching a slippery bath will test the footing, find it inadequate, and leave without bathing. Rough textured surfaces, natural stone, or a layer of small pebbles added to the bottom of a smooth bath dramatically increases the species willing to use it. The most effective designs have a gradual slope from shallow edge to deeper center. Small birds at the rim, larger birds like robins able to immerse more fully toward the middle. A bath with vertical sides and uniform depth is essentially inaccessible to smaller species, regardless of the water level. Get depth, texture, and slope right, and you have solved the basic access problem. But there is still one variable that matters more than all of them combined. Still water and moving water are not the same resource to a bird. A static bird bath is visible from a limited range. A bird flying at the height most small songbirds travel cannot see a still water surface unless it is almost directly overhead. The visual signal is too small, too flat, too easy to miss. Moving water is completely different. Rippling water catches light in shifting patterns visible from significant distance. But even more significant than the visual signal is the acoustic one. The sound of dripping water carries through vegetation, around corners, across distances where the water source itself would be invisible. Birds navigating a suburban neighborhood use sound as much as sight. And the sound of moving water, even from a simple dripper, is a locating signal that reaches birds that would never detect a silent bath at all. Researchers documenting water source use in residential areas found that adding a dripper to an existing bath consistently increased both species variety and visit frequency, sometimes within the first week. The water did not change. The signal it was broadcasting to every bird in the surrounding area changed completely. This is why moving water attracts more species than seed alone. Seed is a resource birds have to find by searching. Moving water announces itself. Now here is the pattern you have almost certainly noticed in your yard, but probably never fully understood. Bathing activity clusters at specific times, late morning after the early feeding rush, and again in mid-afternoon during the quieter window before the late-day feeding begins. These windows are not arbitrary. They align with periods of lower predator activity, times when a bird can afford to be briefly occupied with maintenance without its survival odds dropping too far. A bird in mid-bath is temporarily compromised. It cannot fly at full efficiency. Its attention is divided. Bathing requires accepting a brief increase in vulnerability in exchange for longer-term maintenance benefits. Birds select the timing and location of that vulnerability carefully. This is why birds almost always bathe near dense cover. Proximity to shelter means that if an alarm call goes out mid-bath, the bird can be inside cover within 2 seconds. The bath location is not chosen for convenience. It is chosen to minimize the exposure window during a behavior that requires accepting temporary risk. If your bath sits in the middle of an open lawn with no cover within 15 feet, birds may approach and then leave without bathing. Not because the water is wrong, because the location makes the risk calculation come out the wrong way. So here is what the robin in your yard is actually doing when it steps into the water. It is not enjoying itself. It is executing a precise maintenance sequence, one that keeps its feather zippers interlocked, its insulation intact, its water resistance operational, and its escape speed from predators where it needs to be. Everything that bird can do depends on that feather structure being maintained, and that structure degrades through daily use in ways that only the bathing and preening sequence can reverse. The bird bath in your yard is not a luxury feature. It is survival infrastructure, and the birds in your neighborhood that are thriving, bright plumage, fast flight, clean wing beats, are the ones with consistent access to water that lets them maintain that infrastructure every single day. You can be that source, and the difference between a bath bird's use every morning and one they walk away from usually comes down to 4 things. Things you can check and fix in under 10 minutes. Shallow edges for small birds to stand. A textured surface they can grip, dense cover within 10 feet, and something, anything, that keeps the water moving. That is the entire list. Not expensive, not complicated, just 4 adjustments that align your yard with what birds actually need rather than what looks good from the kitchen window. The robin that stepped into your bath this morning was not there for a luxury. It was there because it had to be. And the fact that it chose your yard out of every yard in your neighborhood means your yard passed a test you did not know you were being given. Tell me in the comments, what is the one change you made to your bird bath that brought the most new species in? I want to hear what worked. I read every single one. I will see you in the next one.